Okay, so I was watching some guy rank the Orleans servants. And I was thinking that, hey, I like the Orleans Singularity the most. I should do that, probably. So that's what I'm gonna be doing, I guess, because it's genuinely my favorite Singularity. I don't have much of a criteria. It really depends on pretty much 2 to 3 things. How much they impact the story in general. The second one is just how much I like them as a character, which, yeah, that won't be as fair. But hear me out. I will give my reasoning for these. I am, I am a certified Orleans expert. Not really. I just really like the Singularity. And that's what I will be tiering all of them on. So let's start. we can start right now. Atalanta? It's hard D tier. There are servants that I consider to be fodder servants, and she is one of them. Because I don't know, I really don't remember what she did. And I think the irony of her being there is just the fact that she likes children. Like, as in, she wants to protect children. And she really wants to keep them safe. But now she's working under a child murderer. And that gives some conflict. That would be a lot more interesting if they actually fucking did something with this. Another criteria for this is I'm trying to rewrite Orleans as a singularity, and I have no idea how to rewrite Atalante to have an impact. And because of that, I don't really know what to do with her, and she'll be in D tier for that. I've never watched Apocrypha. I have personal reasons for not wanting to. So I guess that makes this a lot more fair. Oh my god, there are ads. I hate this site. I hate that there are ads on here. But whatever. Simply put, she didn't really have that much of an impact. And I don't really care for her all that much in the Singularity. And I actually don't really know why she had to be there. So that's my reasoning for Atalante. I just don't know where to put her other than the lowest fucking tier possible. Because I don't want to sound like a hater. But she was pretty much useless in the story. If you took her out, nothing would change. I would not have remembered her. Carmilla. Okay. This is where we get interesting. I really like Carmilla as a character. Because Orleans is the first singularity, all of the servants that you fight are very, very easy to defeat. So I won't be ranking them on how like hard they are or something, because that's a moot point. Because they were not supposed to be hard in any way. But I think Carmilla's writing is interesting. They could have done more with her. That's what I'll say. And I think she did a lot more than Vlad. I'll say that. Because like her motivation is that she wants to kill Jeanne and bathe herself in her blood, a saint's blood, because to her that would be like the top quality of blood that she could bathe herself into, say young, because you know that like myth or legend about Elizabeth Bathory bathing in blood, the blood of virgins specifically, and Jeanne is a virgin, a maiden. That's what she's known for. I like her in relation to her younger self, Elizabeth Bathory. In terms of her impact to the story, she didn't have that much of an impact, but she did put pressure onto Jeanne by trying to essentially break her down. And for the first singularity, I think that is okay. So I'll put her in B. I'll put her in B. The video I was watching put her in A, and I think that's a bit too high for her overall impact because she didn't really impact much. But she was able to be memorable by trying to fuck over Jeanne, basically. This is really sad because I really like Chevalier d'Eon, but she didn't have out of all of the Berserker Circus, as I like to call the opposing force that we will be fighting in Orleans, I think she didn't do as much as the others, and that really bums me because I really like her as a servant. I really like her. I've read up on her. I've read up on pretty much everyone, just for characterization's sake, and I really like D'Eon's deal and how she actually knew Marie in life because Marie gifted her a dress. And yeah, and I think that's really sweet of Marie. But here, under Madness Enhancement, she has to, she has to kill Marie, and I wish there was more to that. I wish there was more to that. She revealed Marie's identity to Jolter. But other than that, even her dialogue wasn't as good. Wasn't as impactful, and I wish it was, because she's such an interesting historical figure. And they did her kind of dirty here. That's really sad. I wish D'Eon did something more. She was really only there for her fighting prowess, not necessarily her dialogue. Oh my god. The manga did do her justice, but I'm only really counting the game. I'm not going to what's this? I'm not going to rank all of these servants based on like outside media. This is only going to be the games. And D'Eon will be in C, unfortunately. Elizabeth! Okay! Finally, we have our first A tier servant, and it's Elizabeth, because I really adore her. I adore the banter she has with everyone. I really like her dynamic with Carmilla, her older self. And I wish, again, the thing with the singularity is that I just wish there was more. I wish stuff could be expanded on, because if they actually bothered to do that and take the time to write a more fleshed out story for Orleans, I just know that Elizabeth and Carmilla would have their own side story. Their own side story where it's kind of like Shiro and Archer Emiya in Fate's Stay Night, where they're both trying to understand each other while fighting through each other's differences at like different stages of their life. Because Elizabeth Bathory, the younger Elizabeth Bathory, she isn't like Carmilla in the sense that because she's focused I'm sorry, I'm a little sick. Because she's focused on wanting to pursue her idol career as a sort of atonement for what she would eventually become. To see like her in the future would obviously make her upset, because that's not what she like at this current stage in her life, and the divergence in her fate. she does not want to end up like Carmilla. Even though she has desires to torture, because she is still Elizabeth Bathory. If you read more about her, she's reported to be already kind of insane, even as a child. She witnessed tortures, she witnessed a lot of horrible things, and that potentially shaped her into becoming Carmilla, basically. And I think that's a really good dynamic that could be explored in a side story, specifically as like a B plot. It should have been a B plot. If that happened, I think Orleans would be a whole lot better if that were to be a side story. Do something like they did in Babylonia, and I don't even like Babylonia all that much, but like, I really, if I do write my rewrite of Orleans, this would be a side story to really explore Elizabeth's character and her relation to the rest of the crew, like Jeanne's crew. Because honestly, she doesn't really have that much of a dynamic with anyone. Maybe with Georgios and Siegfried, because they're both dragon slayers and she is partly dragon. I think something could be done with that. But overall, she is just a really entertaining character. She has some really good lines. Honestly, she could be considered one of the faces of FGO, considering there's so many variations of her. And for her characterization in this first Singularity, I think it's pretty solid. She is mostly there as a gag in some way. But I think the balance between that and her having to be a little more serious in battle, I think A suits her. A suits her a lot. Georgios, though, it's really sad with these two dragon slayers, because I really like Georgios' character. I really do. He acted mostly as a bodyguard, and that's pretty much where it ends most of the time. That and him being a dragon slayer, which just makes him sort of a prop to further as a prop to further the plot of killing Fafnir. And that's pretty much it. There's not really much characterization for him outside of that. Besides him being a photographer, but that's not really relevant to Orleans. You meet him so that him and Jeanne could break the curses placed on Siegfried. Yes, but then after that, it's kind of like it's a little slow for him to really solidify his place within our army, like Jeanne's army. And he's not really there most of the time. And that's sad. It's really sad. I might have to put him in C because of that. Because he's genuinely so cool. And I really like him. But he's mostly defined by him being able to defeat Fafnir alongside Siegfried. And that's pretty much where his story ends in Orleans. He doesn't have much dynamic with anyone. He mostly kept to himself, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah. I'm really sorry, Georgios. He should have more lines with Martha, I think. I think maybe in a flashback sequence. Because Martha knows that Georgios is there. Martha practically, I'm sorry for saying a lot. This is unscripted. Martha pretty much told us where Georgios is. So they have history together. Yeah. Not much to say about Georgios. I'm really dragging this out, huh? But it's okay. I'm very biased when it comes to Gilles. I'm really biased because I really like him. If this was a matter of hey, what's your favorite servant? You would be an S tier. I'm not joking. Yeah, an unpopular opinion. I really like Gilles as a character. Yes, I've watched Fate Zero. Yes, I know what he did. Yes, I research about him. Unfortunately, for my own morbid curiosity, I did do that for characterization's sake, and he's an awful person. But I really like his character in FGO. FGO kind of muddies his horribleness to make him sort of like a weird uncle, but that's not what we're focusing on. But in terms of Gilles' impact on the story, so that one video that I mentioned about talks about how like the twist ending, that he's the holder of the Grail actually is kind of cool. I think it went about it like it was a bit too late for you to reveal, for the story to reveal that. And I wish there was more of a build-up to it. Yes, there is a build-up. When we get to Jolter, I will talk a little more about that, I think. There is a build-up to the realization that, oh, Jolter isn't the one holding the Grail, but she is the front runner. And Gilles, you know, he wants to act as her right-hand man. That's why he operates in the back. He is the general, but as a caster, he's not gonna be out there fighting with his sword and satiating his bloodlust. So he'll be in the back planning everything. But I wish he was a little more intimidating. There are ways to do it. They should do the reveal a little earlier. At least heavily imply it a lot more earlier. So that by the time he does say that he is the holder of the Grail, that's when, like, I wish that the moment he told everyone he was the holder of the Grail, he made Jolter, that's when he went into full force. The build-up and, like, the implicated reveal would be, like, that would be the build-up to something greater, and I wish they did it, like, in the manga. I forgot if it was Turas Rialta. I think it was Turas Rialta. I forgot if Mortalis Stella did it. I think they did. And it's where Gilles summoned, like, his giant fucking creature of the deep monster. That one. That should have been the final boss. It should have been it. It should have been the final boss. And I would love for that to happen, but it didn't. The ending to Orleans is so anticlimactic that it pains me. It pains me because they have an opportunity to use his noble phantasm, his fucking noble phantasm. Oh my god. God, I'm coughing a lot. I have a cough. But goodness me, in terms of how he is in, like, the actual game, Oh, he feels so non-threatening by the end of it. It pains me. Because even though he's such a weak caster, he can utilize his noble phantasm to make himself look and feel stronger than he actually is. He's not a competent mage, but god damn it, he's able to make it work. But the ending is so anticlimactic because that's not even when demon god pillars were introduced. Gilles was acting on his own. He got the grail and he just ran with it. I don't think he particularly even cared about Goetia's plans or whatever. I'm pretty sure that's not it. He's just running on vengeance, which would make him a really good Avenger, actually. And alas, he's just a caster. The twist came about too late. It doesn't feel so threatening. Even through Jalter, it doesn't really feel as if he did all that much, and it doesn't feel like he planned much in the back. It was mostly Jalter, but whatever. I'll refrain. Okay, I will refrain from talking too much about Gilles because I think I would start to go on a huge ramble if I let myself speak. So, sorry, Buki. You're in B. I think you did more than Carmilla. Georgios did less than Dayon, in my opinion. Now, Saber Gilles, who is alive in the Singularity, a la Nero in Septem, because of that, he didn't do much. And I'm not even mad at that. He's only really there to be like, to reinforce the idea that he is able to tell Jeanne apart from Jalter. And Saber Gilles' inclusion and the little bits of scenes we have of him are just there to confirm that yes, Jalter is a completely separate person from Jeanne, and that they're not actually the same person all that much. That's Saber Gilles' role. But in terms of the overall plot, he didn't really do much. There is a really nice bit at the end of Orleans where even after all this time, even after knowing that the ruler Jeanne that's on our side is the real one, he couldn't get to see her. And even if they did, nothing would happen. He would still end up becoming Caster Gilles. And that is a really bleak thought. But other than all of this, other than the more symbolic approaches to his character and inclusion in the story, I think he is AD. I'm so sorry, Saber Gilles. I know that you did get your chance to shine later on. I haven't gone to the Paper Moon. But still. I really like your character, even though you are supposed to be really bland. That is the point of Saber Gilles. He is supposed to be bland in comparison to how batshit insane Caster is. But I like that. Jalter. Easy S. I don't know what else to say. She is the main antagonist and the actual person doing shit. Gilles... okay. Gilles, he worked at the sides. Basically, he was like the puppeteer. And he's puppeteering Jalter. Because to him, to Caster Gilles, he is Jeanne d'Arc's right-hand man. So he feels as if he cannot take the spotlight. That's why Jalter is the one doing shit. That's why she is the main threat. That's why she is the one who actually gets to do cool shit. And I really, really, really like the bit where she realizes that she is a foe. She is not real. She's basically a fake. And that sets up Jolter's arc with her having to find her own identity, which becomes an integral part of a character. And I like how that is established in Orleans. I really like the start to that. Because, you know, yeah, Jolter ends up becoming playable later down the road. And if you study her, she really wants to distance herself from Jeanne because she wants to be seen as her own person. An evil version of Jeanne, yes, but like this is how she wants to be in a sense. Gilles created her, but in the end, she is in charge of her own thing, her own destiny. Gilles only sort of paved the way for Jolter's characterization. And you can see roots of it forming in Orleans. When Jeanne asks Jolter about her home life, how she was as a peasant French girl living in Domremy, and Jolter realizing that she has no recollection of that period of Jeanne's life, shattered her. It shattered her. It gave her a really huge identity crisis because she truly believed in some aspect that she is Jeanne, at least at that time. Because if you read about the historical Joan of Arc, you'll realize that Jolter is a lot more, like, she's a lot more historically accurate to the historical Joan of Arc compared to Jeanne. Because my interpretation of these two is that Jeanne, as a ruler, as a mediator for the Holy Grail War, she had to compromise a lot of her personality. She had to compromise her more abrasive side to really so that she can, you know, so that she can keep the I can't fucking speak. So that she can keep a Holy Grail war in check. That's what I was trying to say. So she doesn't feel so ruler Jeanne doesn't feel as mean. So Jolter takes that place. She really does feel like the historical Jeanne, but she's still a fake regardless. Because Gilles, you know, he knew Jeanne. He was her right-hand man. So in Gilles' crossed eyes, Jolter really is who Jeanne is, just evil, you know? A Jeanne who feels regret. I'm going on a tangent. I think I am starting to go on a tangent. Basically, Jolter did a whole lot, and she really did live up to her name as the Dragon Witch. I just wish she had more dragon motifs. And though, because in the Singularity she does have to pose as the real Jeanne, I don't really blame her for that. So she is an S tier. Even outside of Orleans, she's a really good character. And I really, really, really do love her as a character. Now, I did talk quite a bit about Jeanne, and I would put her in A, above Liz. Actually, I think I would put Atalante below Saber, because I think honestly he did have more of an impact. But back to Jeanne. So in the video I watched by Cloudy Crow, he talked about how Jeanne seems a bit too much like a pure goody two-shoes, and honestly, I feel like that is a very watered-down version of what Jeanne represents. she is meant to be the perfect saint in a way, you know. She was wronged by people, and she does not want that to define her. She wants to be defined by what she can do for others, for what she can do to her country. Is she a goody two shoes? In the Singularity specifically, yeah. She does get more abrasive later on, but this is not it. We're talking about FGO's early writing, where Nas only acted as a co-writer and not the main one. So Jeanne's characterization is a little off. She feels a bit too good in the Singularity. But I think for what she's worth, she serves as a really good protagonist. I'm not calling the Last Master of Humanity the protagonist in this case, because the real focus is Jeanne and how she feels about Jolter, how she has to grapple with the fact on whether or not she really does feel remorse, whether she does feel regret over trying to save France. The same France who let her be taken in by the English, to be taken prisoner as ransom, and to eventually be burnt on the stake. And the fact that in the Singularity, Jeanne just became a servant. Okay, she only died 3 days ago, so she doesn't really know how this stuff works yet. So it actually makes sense for her to feel a little on the weaker side compared to how she normally is if you see her outside of Orleans. And I think, in a way to characterize a servant who, like a servant who just became a servant, if that makes sense, right? I think Jeanne grappling with this confusion and having to confront her own morals, how she views humanity, and how she views her own country, especially because they clash with Caster Gilles, who still admires her a lot. I think that journey, us going through that journey with her, to see her grow, and to stand her ground, and to stand by her morals, it is some really solid writing for the first Singularity, and because of that, I put her at a high A for now, the top of A. Kiyohime. I do consider her like a servant. She's not a father servant. I think there could be more done with her. She does feel really out of place. Because of that, I will put her at C, above Georgios, but below Deon. Now, she's mostly defined by her relation to the Master, who she views as a reincarnated version or just someone comparable to her one and only love, Anchin. And because of that, she sticks by us. She sticks by us. Her only relation to the Singularity is the fact that she is a dragon. And that's pretty much it. I don't know what else she is, because she's not a French servant in any way. So she feels really out of place amongst the rest of the cast, who are largely European and mostly French. So, in terms of what Kiyohime's importance is to the story, if you took her out, nothing much would change. But she does have really good banter with Elizabeth, so that makes her a little more memorable. She does solidify her presence in this Singularity, but not as her own. which is really sad. Not as her own, but as Elizabeth's rival. And she has some nice dialogue. She can be a little cute, despite being crazy, because she is like a textbook yandere. But I cannot. She's very inoffensive, in my opinion. She doesn't make me want to go, I want her out of the story. No. But she's just there. That's what I classify her as. But I don't know if I want to put her I don't know if I want to put her below Georgios. Maybe I would. Because Georgios does have plot relevance. Kiyohime doesn't. So I'd put her... I think I'd have to put her bottom C. I like her as a character. But she doesn't really do much. Georgios did more. And speaking of someone who doesn't do much, there's Lancelot. And I'd put him at bottom D. Because he's fucking useless. At least with Kiyohime, she's memorable. You take Lancelot out of the story and nothing would fucking change. The only reason he's there is because 1, Lancelot is French. 2, his relation to Gilles, because they're both in Fate Zero. And on top of that, also in relation to Gilles, they made a joke to where Lancelot mistook Jeanne as Artoria, which is what Gilles did to Artoria, where he mistook her for mistook Artoria for Jeanne. I don't consider Jeanne a Saberface, because even Gilles acknowledges that. He doesn't just go up to a Saberface and calls him Jeanne, no. Artoria just shares a lot of similarities that aren't superficial, that aren't physical to Jeanne. But Lancelot made that like little observation as like a callback joke to Gilles. But that's it. Other than that, he's non-threatening. He doesn't do much, and even Carmilla and Vlad just view him as disposable. Not Carmilla and Vlad. I think it was Carmilla and Deon. They view him as disposable. The moment Lancelot got into a fight and was losing, Carmilla was like, "Hey, let's just leave him be, just forget about him." That's basically what she said. So, yeah, Lancelot is useless. He is a fodder servant, and when I get to rewriting Orleans, which I will do, he will not be in the story. He's just completely useless. Doesn't add anything at all. Marie. Okay. I'm very torn on putting her in either A or S, because I think she had a lot of impact, in my opinion. Of course, there was a sacrifice, but I'm not going to just solely define her by her sacrifice, because Marie, being so talkative, being so naive, being literally a teenager, she has a lot of pretty good interactions with everyone. And I think that serves her character really well, in my opinion. Because Marie... Of course, we'll talk about her relation to Amadeus later. Again, Amadeus is my favorite. But let's not talk about that just yet. Marie... Okay. She idolizes Jeanne a lot. And this is her, this is her country. She was sent to France to be their queen, and she's expected to be loved by everyone up until, shit happens. she was blamed for everything, and she eventually got beheaded. But because of her intrinsic relation to France and the country in general, she feels obligated to protect it because she couldn't do that in life. She made the country worse, and she kind of wants to atone for that. She wants to be loved by everyone. She wants to do the best for her, even if she acknowledges that she's really naive. Especially because she's summoned as a teenager here. She's just 14. She is the Dauphin of France. She wasn't a queen yet. She's not actually a queen yet in this form, but because she is Marie Antoinette, she is still referred to as a queen and is treated as such, because that's what she eventually became anyways. Because of that, especially with her relation to Jeanne, they have some really good dialogue between them. Really, really good dialogue. Because Marie idolizes Jeanne in a very specific way. Because Jeanne, she had to prove herself as a commoner. She had to prove herself in front of the Dauphin, Charles VII. And Marie, being of royal blood, she feels really guilty. She feels really guilty knowing that she could never ever live up to her status as a queen. So she idolizes Jeanne, who's of a lesser status than her, and she insists on being referred to just by Marie instead of being called a queen, because she doesn't want to be tied by that. She just wants to be a girl, in a sense, and she wants to help people as a girl. But she also has to assume her responsibility as the Queen of France. And her sacrifice is essentially her way of doing that. She sacrificed herself because that is, to her, the biggest thing she could have done in that situation. It was to sacrifice herself and to get Jeanne and Georgios safe. Because, one, she has the noble phantasm for that, and two, she was hated by the people. She was extremely hated by the people, and her only way of really showcasing her charity once more, her one final act of charity, because in the historical Marie Antoinette did do a lot for charity, and that is to keep everyone safe and to sacrifice herself, just as she did for France by being beheaded, and to go down in history as Madame de Facit, a queen who was hated by her people for being for being the personification of royal excess. So yeah, because of her history and because of her very her importance to the plot of Orleans, with her sacrifice and all of that, and with her relation to everyone else, she belongs in S, in my opinion. Below Jolter, of course, but she had more of an impact to me personally than Jeanne, and I really love Jeanne still. But I really, Marie, I love you, Marie. Plus, she's got some funny moments, so more points to her on that. Martha. So Martha, okay. She was sent out to scout us, basically. To scout us and to hold us back. So Martha was, in a sense, destined to die. To die early. To die as soon as she was being introduced. Or had her place solidified in the Berserker Circus. Martha, because of her strong will, she resisted the effects of madness enhancement. And that makes her a really interesting character. Because, yeah, everyone else resisted it to a degree, but not to the point that Martha has. Because she readily gave out very vital information to us, to the master, once she was defeated. Martha knew her place as a pawn and fulfilled her duty. And that's her character. She knows she had to die for this. She knows she had to die for a good cause, even if she was placed in the hands of the enemy. And she did her part well. She did her part well by essentially being a sacrifice in a way, a sacrificial lamb. Which is funny because she is a follower of Jesus. She is a saint. She is Christian. So I guess, as a Christian myself, she does embody a very specific she embodies a very specific ideology in Christianity where even when you're up against the enemy, you're still committed to doing good. And she knows that, and in a sense, I think she does know what's going on and wants to help humanity. So she had herself be killed in the process before she can really become depraved. And because of that, even if her time is brief, she had a pretty good impact. Even if it wasn't much. Now, do I want to place her above Carmilla is the question. I don't know. Because Carmilla had more screen time. So maybe, for now, I'll put Martha below Carmilla. Okay. Okay. So, unlike the video that I just watched, I really like Amadeus. Absolutely fucking love him. He is my favorite servant ever. And I think, and to put him anything below S would be fucking criminal. Because I really love his dynamic with Marie and Sanson. Okay, I get it. He's a freak. That's just how the historical Mozart is. And I think it's really funny that he's letting a 14-year-old boss him around because he's really devoted to Marie in a platonic sense. There is a point in the Singularity where either you, the master, or Mash, I kind of forgot that, but like we asked him, hey, do you still love Marie? Love as in a romantic sense. It would be weird for him to say yes to that. So he he affirms that what he feels for Marie, despite all the weird comments, is platonic. And if you look at him outside of Orleans, that is mostly the case. That is like, not mostly, I think that is just the case. That's just the case. He sees Marie platonically. Because to see it anyway else is just weird. But let's not get to the speech right now. In terms of Amadeus's role in the group, he is mostly comic relief in a sense. Because he's just a goofy guy. He is Mozart. And Mozart is known to be really friendly, really approachable, likes to speak, likes to talk with people, really sociable. So that's why he's able to pretty much talk with everyone. But when Marie talks about seeing Jeanne as having no flaws, Mozart, Amadeus, being a rebel at heart, and with his own beliefs on humanity conflicting with that of Marie, he has some really good banter with her, and I really like this dialogue between the three of them, where Amadeus tells Marie that she should not view Jeanne in this as this idolized version of Jeanne where she has no flaws and whatnot, because humans inherently have flaws. And Amadeus, believing himself to be inhuman and has trouble really connecting with people on a deeper level, takes that as a sort of flaw that he specifically has, and that affirms his belief that humans are just naturally flawed, because if he, a genius, is not the most perfect thing in existence, that means no one else is. When he heard Marie said that to Jeanne, he took a bit of offense to that, because that's not how he sees Jeanne. He thinks she's flawed, which she is, by the way. And Amadeus tries to convince Marie that this line of thinking, of putting Jeanne on a pedestal, is extremely damaging, because this is not how Jeanne wants to view herself. And Marie, who's been so far super agreeable, super demure, super chatty, starts talking back to Amadeus, and that really solidifies their dynamic. Marie ends up bad-mouthing him because she's 14, she's really naive. She acknowledges she has a very naive view of Jeanne, but she doesn't want to hear it from Amadeus because, Amadeus is a little bit of a dirty guy. And Marie doesn't appreciate that, so she feels as if that any criticisms coming from Amadeus are like kind of moot, because he himself is so flawed that he cannot say anything nice at all towards anyone. That is how Marie sees him. So this gives us an interesting dynamic to where Marie keeps Amadeus in line, but Amadeus, being the adult, is there to kind of like to really bring Marie back down to earth, in a sense, by reminding her of stuff like this, that we're flawed, that I am flawed. So yeah, I really like that bit of interaction. And also, I'm gonna refrain from talking about the Orleans manga, like Taurus Realta specifically, but when news broke out to everyone that Marie sacrificed herself, she died in the process of trying to save Jeanne and Georgios, you can tell just how hurt hurt Amadeus is over this, and it signifies a shift in how Amadeus acts. Her death, it doesn't send him spiraling, but it reminds him that without her, a part of him feels a bit lost. A part of him feels incomplete. So he really tries to make up for that by actually trying to help you, the master, this time. Once Marie sacrifices herself. And I just, God, just the B plot of Marie and Amadeus's relationship makes him such an interesting character. And his banter and his contrast to Sanson, which I'll get into later, also really cements his place as being a really memorable servant in Orleans. So I will put Amadeus in S tier, though I'm not sure if I want to put him above Marie or not. If I'm being biased, I would, but I don't want to be too biased. Phantom of the Opera. He is the most useless servant in this fucking Singularity. Because he only showed up for one fight, didn't get much dialogue in, and immediately died. It's actually baffling just how useless he is, because it's baffling just how much more useless he is than Lancelot. It's almost insulting in a way how much they did Eric dirty. It's so sad. Sorry, Phantom of the Opera. God damn it. It's really sad that nothing came of him. He's like a tick that you step on. He's like a tick that you take off a dog and step on. He's so inconsequential. Like, sometimes I forget he's even in the Singularity. And I at least remember Lancelot. So, yeah, easiest ranking of my life, low D tier. Good lord. Sanson! Okay. Oh, Sanson. Oh, Sanson. I'm sorry you cannot be in S tier with your sillies. Sanson is probably the most compelling villain in the Singularity besides Jalter. Because... Oh! Actually, can I talk a little bit more about Amadeus? Because I think I almost forgot about his speech to Mash, because I think it's really profound. There is this one quote by the actual historical Mozart that I think really encapsulates his speech. And that is this: I pay no attention whatever to anybody's praise or blame. I simply follow my own feelings. And this is really reflective of how he talks about Mash and how she feels about her place in the world. Because Mash, she was lab grown in a sense. She couldn't have a normal childhood because her destiny has been pre-planned. She was meant to be a vessel for a servant. She's meant to be a demi-servant, and she is the only recorded successful case of it happening. Because of that, she doesn't have a normal childhood. And it's sort of in the same boat with Amadeus, because as a kid, he was already a child prodigy. He was already traveling all over Europe, performing for kings and queens, performing for the nobility, performing for all of these really important people. And because of that, Amadeus himself also does not have a very typical childhood. His childhood was marked by his father parading him and his sister around to get money, because his father Leopold saw his and his sister's potential, quit his job, and just like banked all of like the family's finances on Amadeus Mozart. So they both didn't have a normal childhood. But at least with Amadeus, he gets to mingle around with commoners in a sense, you know. He at least had a lot of connections and, you know, lived to be 35, so while Mash, she's still a teenager, at least by the time of the Singularity. She was still a teenager, and her childhood has been marked by being an experiment. Mash contemplates her place in this world, thinking that she isn't really good enough to save the world. Amadeus disagrees and gets angry at her for that, because that's not his impression of her. And what he wants Mash to take away from all of this is that she has to carve her own destiny. That just like the quote I said earlier that Mozart historically said, she has to follow her own feelings, she has to carve her own path, and solidify and mark her place in this world. Make a mark on humanity. Make a mark on her senpai, which is you. And once Amadeus got to the senpai part, that's when Mash really gets what he's saying, because to Mash, us, her senpai, is her world in a sense, because we were there for her while she was like dying. Okay, so yeah, I thought that was super interesting. Amadeus's philosophy on how even though we are flawed as humans, we are dirty, we are filthy, sometimes feels like we should not be able to enjoy the things that we do, like music, for example. But to Amadeus, we still have the right to appreciate the beauty in life, to love beautiful things, even when we are so dirty and so horrendous as human beings. Because he himself sees himself as flawed, he thinks he's not human in a sense, but he's still able to connect with people because he finds the beauty in everything, especially music and that. But okay, so, and I think that really made him have a really big impact on the Singularity. I don't know, whatever the fuck. I don't know, I just like to talk about Amadeus. I like to talk about Mozart. But back to Sanson. Below Jeanne, above Elizabeth. Because, fun fact, these three, this trio, a lot of their dialogue, a lot of their interactions were written by Nas. Because of that, these three are actually the most fleshed out characters as a trio, in my opinion. Sanson, while historically he did not behead Marie Antoinette, that was actually his son. They wanted Charles Henry Sanson. He's the most famous of the Sansons. So to make it more interesting, they had him be the one to behead Marie Antoinette in FGO canon. Because of that, he has a very interesting dynamic with Marie. He really appreciates her, he really respects her. But not to the point of vulgarity in a sense. Sure, under madness enhancement, he likened being beheaded to having an orgasm. But he was under madness enhancement. So, who's to say? But he does value life. Unlike Amadeus, who sees all life, well, all living, breathing humans in this world as dirty, Sanson has the complete opposite philosophy, that humans are pure and precious, and because of that, when they die in the name of justice, they should die in a painless way. Because death should not have to be so cruel and unjust and unkind. That's why he was a big advocate for the guillotine in the first place. And so, when Amadeus speaks on humans, Sanson doesn't really like that. He doesn't agree with Amadeus, and he is extremely baffled just how close Amadeus and Marie are, despite him and Amadeus being so different. And he wants to vie for Marie's platonic affection because he feels as if his morals and his view on humans aligns more with Marie. So there is this conflict between Sanson and Amadeus, to where they want they really want to be acknowledged by Marie as a friend, and they want her kindness back. They want her kindness, and they compete for it. They compete to see who's the better friend, essentially. And when Marie badmouths Sanson, because once Sanson takes lives without justice in an act of bloodshed, that's when his blade, the blade he uses to execute people, got duller. Because once Sanson succumbs to his madness enhancement, he lost his morals. And in turn, his blade lost all meaning as a deliverer, as a delivery of justice. And so it becomes dull. When Marie points this out, and is not happy with how Sanson is acting, that hurt him so much. That hurt him so much that he goes mad. He goes really mad and starts killing people left and right without remorse, without even thinking about what he's doing. When him and Amadeus meet, he recognizes Amadeus and he really wants to kill him. But Amadeus snaps Sanson out of his blind rage. And and all of that. He does it by basically insulting him and insulting his friendship with Marie. And that's when he snaps. Because that's not how Sanson wants to be perceived as. He does not want to be seen as a ruthless killer. That's not his job. He is an executioner and he wants to be respected. And historically, as an executioner, he fought to be respected and to be classified as a citizen, because While you can secure a good living as an executioner, you are shunned by society. And Sanson worked hard to bring a good image to executioners in Paris, in France actually, just in France in general. So when his line of work gets insulted, and his relation to Marie gets insulted, he snaps out of it. Because he realizes, hey, that's not what I want to be seen as. So, because of that, I really like the dialogue between these three. They are so solid, and because of that, I think I would have to put Sanson in top of A. I actually like it. I don't know if I want to put him in S specifically, because the villains besides Jolter don't really get much in the way of character, but with what little we have of Sanson and his dialogue in Orleans, it's super good. And I really like how he is written. Now Siegfried. Didn't do too much. I'd put him in the same tier as Georgios. In the sense that he's really only there to be a means to an end. To kill off Fafnir. Because that's what happened in the in his legend. He killed Fafnir. And that's what he's pretty much known for. He doesn't really have much dialogue between people besides like calling for help, because he was afflicted with a bunch of curses that were put on him by everyone. I don't know why the Berserkers didn't just kill him outright, but that's besides the point. They put a bunch of curses on him, making him useless. But I did like this one section where Fafnir was attacking, and despite the curses put on him, Siegfried was able to muster up the strength to at least hold Fafnir back for a while. And I really like that show of bravery, and I really like that. Besides that, though, I actually don't really know. I don't really remember too much of what he did, because it's kind of inconsequential what he does that isn't just him beating Fafnir up, basically. And it sucks because, like a lot of these servants, I do really like Siegfried. I just wish they gave him more justice, they gave him more screen time, gave him more lines. That's what I want. And give him and better establish his relationship to others. I especially want to see more of that with Elizabeth and Georgios, because I really want them to interact more. I really think that would be super cool. And last but not least, Vlad III. Vlad is interesting, because like most of the Berserker Circus, he didn't really do much. But he does have a lot of good interactions with Carmilla, because of the connection where Carmilla / Elizabeth Bathory might be related to Vlad from the Romanian side of her family, if I'm not mistaken. So they have some shared history together in a way, and they're both models for Bram Stoker's Dracula. And them being made into vampires here through madness enhancement gives a very interesting light on Vlad, because he does not want to be seen as a vampire. He does not want that to be his legacy. He wants his legacy to stay as a warrior who fought off the Ottoman Empire by being scary, by, impaling Turkish soldiers to scare them, and blah 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 blah, like that, right? But because he has to drink blood to survive in the Singularity after being under madness enhancement, he has a lot of self-worth issues, I think. Because he really likes to complain about that in particular. And Carmilla calls him out for it because she sees Vlad as just as much of a monster as she is. And so she gets annoyed when Vlad insists that he's being righteous, that he's still a good person. And I like that dynamic between these two, because they have a lot of similarities, yet they're so different in how they want to express their similarities. Carmilla fully embraces her role as a torturer of women and young girls. And she really leans into the legend surrounding her. While Vlad is the complete opposite, he does not want to be associated with the legend surrounding him. He wants to be seen as a hero. But that never came about because he's under madness enhancement and he's under Jalter. But in the grand scheme of things, he doesn't actually do too much. And his only notable thing is his dialogue with Carmilla. He doesn't really say much to us, the master, and everyone in our entourage. Carmilla definitely had more to say to us, and especially Jeanne, but not Vlad. So, but he did more than Martha, in my opinion, so he can comfortably sit behind Carmilla and above Martha. So, this is my... this is my final, fucking thing. Yay! I finally did it. I finally could... I can finally make this now. So... I'm not sure how to close out this video. Because it's just like... what can I say? I want to say more because I really want to talk about all of the changes that I am willing to make to rewrite this story. Maybe that can come about in a future video. I'm not entirely sure. But this is my final tiering for all of the Orleans servants. I hope people enjoy this. I'm sorry that everyone has to know that I really like Gilles as a character. I'm so sorry for that. And that's pretty much it, I think. So, if you want to disagree, which you can, it's okay. We all have our own opinions. We all have our own opinions on this shit. Maybe you're Salieri and you really fucking hate Amadeus and you want to put him in D tier. Fine by me. I will respectfully disagree with you because I love him so much. Anyways, that's pretty much it. So, yeah.